All right, welcome. Today we are digging into one of the most powerful personal stories you'll ever hear. We're talking about the testimony of the Apostle Paul, right from Acts chapter 22. So let's just jump right in with a huge question, one that gets to the heart of transformation. Think about this. What could possibly turn a movement's worst enemy into its greatest champion? I mean, it sounds impossible, right? Well, the story we're about to walk through is maybe the most dramatic example of this ever. To really get the scale of this change, you first have to understand who this man, Paul, was before it all happened. He was a zealous, brilliant, and frankly, a very dangerous persecutor. His name was Saul of Tarsus. So, picture this. Paul is standing in front of an angry mob that literally just tried to kill him. And what does he do? He doesn't argue the theology. He doesn't debate. He connects with them. He says, I was zealous toward God, just like you are, and I persecuted this way unto the death. He's basically saying, hey, I get it. I am one of you. I understand your fire because that same fire used to burn in me. I mean, Paul is building this incredible bridge of empathy. This isn't just him listing off his resume. No, this is proof that he was once exactly like them. When he says he studied at the feet of Gamaliel, that's like saying you studied under a Nobel Prize winner today. It's a huge deal. He had official papers from the high priest himself to hunt down believers and have them killed. He is painting this absolutely vivid and undeniable picture of who he used to be. And all of that, it just sets the stage for the pivot point, the one moment where everything, and I mean everything, changed. We're talking about a supernatural, life-altering encounter on the road to Damascus. And listen to how Paul describes this. He gives these specific sensory details that really ground it in reality. This wasn't him just thinking up a new philosophy, no way. This was a real, physical event. It happened about noon, when the sun is already at its absolute brightest. But then a light from heaven, even brighter than the sun, just slams into him and throws him to the ground. Can you even imagine that? And then he hears a voice, and the very first words are so piercing, so personal. The voice doesn't say, hey, why are you persecuting my church? It asks, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me? Think about that. Jesus identifies so closely with his followers that when they're attacked, he takes it personally. Now, Saul's first response is just fascinating. He immediately calls the voice Lord. So right away, he knows he's in the presence of someone divine, some kind of heavenly authority. But he has no idea who it is yet. And then comes the reveal, the world-altering, shocking answer. I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom thou persecutest. Boom. In that single moment, everything Saul believed just shatters. The man he was convinced was a dead criminal, a blasphemer, was alive, was powerful, and was speaking to him directly from heaven. And this right here, this is the moment of total surrender. His first question was, who are you? His very next question is, what shall I do, Lord? Do you see the shift? In an instant, Saul goes from being the one giving the orders to the one taking them. He just completely hands over the keys to his own life. So now he's blinded by this light, totally helpless, and he has to be led by the hand into the same city he was marching on to terrorize. It's in that place of weakness that his encounter gets confirmed and his brand new purpose starts to unfold. God doesn't just leave Paul on his own to figure this out. He sends a messenger, a guy named Ananias. And get this, he's described as a devout man having a good report of all the Jews. So this isn't some random stranger. This is a well-respected guy from the very community Paul came from. That makes his confirmation of what happened to Paul so powerful. So Ananias lays out Paul's new job description, basically. And the language he uses is so important. He says, the God of our fathers hath chosen thee. He's framing this not as some brand new religion, but as the fulfillment of the faith they already shared. And Paul's new job? It isn't to be a debater or a philosopher. It's just to be a witness, to tell everyone what he has personally seen and heard. Simple as that. And what's so interesting is that this massive, dramatic, supernatural event is immediately followed by a very simple, practical next step, a call to obedience. Get baptized. It's this outward, public way of saying, I'm with Jesus now. It's like the first step of this whole new life, a symbolic washing that becomes real when you call on the name of the Lord. So what's the big takeaway from all this? What's the point? Well, think back to that angry mob. Paul's ultimate defense, it wasn't some complicated legal argument. It was just his story. And that reveals this timeless, powerful principle about your own personal testimony. Okay, this is really cool. The word used for Paul's mission, to be a witness, it carries so much weight. The original Greek word is martus. Does that sound familiar? It's where we get our English word martyr. The connection is powerful. A true witness isn't just someone who tells a story. It's someone so convinced by what they've personally seen and heard that they'd be willing to die for it. And that brings it all home for us, right? This is the core message. Just like Paul, your most powerful tool is your own before and after story. Look, people can argue about theology and debate doctrines all day long, but it's almost impossible to argue with a genuinely changed life. Your personal story of transformation, that's the one thing that is uniquely, powerfully, and irrefutably yours. So this all leaves us with one final question to think about. Paul's story is, incredibly dramatic, but the principle behind it? That applies to every single one of us. He was told to just share what he had seen and heard. So as you think about your own journey, what's the story that only you can tell? All right, before we finish up, here are a few next steps you can take to really make this stick. And just so you know, this whole explainer was based on the great source material put together by the You Need Faith in Jesus team. Now, to really solidify what you've learned, make sure you use the flashcards to go over the key terms. And after that, take the quiz to complete the lesson. It's the best way to make sure it all sinks in. Thanks so much for joining me.